So I think this game is so important inside the game. Yeah. Before we get to the fight, how does Dustin prepare himself up top to approach Saturday? It's fascinating. I think this is a story or a fight that has just a lot of different questions. I don't know if we've seen Conor as motivated or as focused as he has seemed for a very long time. And Dustin Poirier, you wonder if the experiences he's had since that first fight have prepared him for taking that challenge on again. You know, so it's a very difficult fight to call because there are so many unknowns. Because for as good as we know Dustin Poirier has gotten, has he closed the gap? Now, there's some mental things that Dustin can rely on to allow him to feel more propped up. He got knocked out. He didn't get beat over an extended period of time. It was a very close fight. You can call back on that. Like, hey, I got caught with a shot. I don't know what would have happened over the course of 15 minutes. You get caught with a shot again like that, then you know that guy just knows how to find that spot on you. So, I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, that's what's interesting, right? Like, because you brought up the mental aspect of it. That seems to be such a big discussion point for everybody going in, is the mental side of it. At this level of the sport, I mean, how much that does, and we're talking about two of the greatest athletes in the world, right?
Yeah.
The greatest fighters on the planet. How much of that mental side of it really does factor?
It's insane. It's insane. I think, you know, thinking back to your fight career and the positions that I was in as a guy that fought a guy twice after winning, and then fighting the guy twice or a third time after losing. When you lose to a guy, especially a guy that you had, even though now it may seem a little bit less nasty, it was nasty initially, and you had that with him, you're never more motivated than the time you get a chance to fight him again. So if that stays the way it has been, especially in my case, Dustin Poirier will feel and be more prepared than he ever could have imagined come Saturday night. But it is very important for him, and I've said this on multiple occasions. The mental aspect of this game for Dustin is probably the biggest factor, because he has to figure out how to look past what happened the first time. Because all week, or for the last month, right? Because it's Conor McGregor, so the promotion is much longer. Right, people pick it up faster. Dustin has seen himself get knocked out, I mean, 1,000 times, right? In every promotion, there's Dustin getting knocked out. Every time Conor speaks, he talks about knocking him out, right? It's just a constant reminder. So you got to get over that as an athlete. Yeah, sure, you knocked me out the first time, but can you do it again? So I think this game is so important inside the game. Before we get to the fight, how does Dustin prepare himself up top to approach Saturday? It's fascinating.
And I want to ask you, it's kind of the flip side. It's kind of a mental thing, too. I want to ask you about the fighting environment itself, right? When we think about Conor McGregor, spotlights on, crowds, thousands, he seems to respond to that, right?
Yeah.
And you seem like the perfect guy to ask, because you fought in those arenas, but you've also fought in the Apex, right? And I know there's some fans there, but for a guy that seems to, shine in the spotlight, is there a chance that Conor might not be as sharp or as ready or as he normally is when he's under the spotlights of thousands?
You know what's crazy is that we've had, on multiple occasions now, that we've started to fight in front of no fans, you have seen differences in performances. Tony Ferguson has not competed as well without fans. But Justin Gaethje had the performance of his life because the fans weren't there to rile him up and make him go crazy and put himself in danger. So you don't know. I mean, everybody spars in an empty room. So you try to call on those experiences to say that's how I'm going to fight. But it's much different once you walk in there. Listen, you hit that curtain for years, and there are thousands of people going absolutely crazy. When I walked out into the Apex, it was only Halle Berry screaming, which is a good fan to have. Yeah, it's a good fan to have. It was the only person in there screaming, right? So it is a difference. But once you get in that octagon, it's only fighting, and it's all we all know.
Yeah. Last thing for me, we've talked about all kinds of intangibles. Now let's talk about just inside. Simple breakdown. Is it just as easy as Conor early, Dustin late.
It's a great fight. It seems to be what happens on the surface. You know, like if Dustin can carry this fight into the later rounds, he has, as of late, been able to get better as the fight has progressed, right? Dustin wasn't always a guy that got better in the fourth and the fifth and the third. You know, Korean Zombie overwhelmed him early in his career when he was trying to knock everybody out very fast. But we saw in the Dan Hooker fight, we saw in the Max Holloway fight, that Dustin has become a guy that does fight better as the fight goes along and has an ability to rebuild himself after things go sideways. That was one of his biggest faults early in his career, was when it went bad, it went really bad for Dustin, right? It was over. You saw the doubt in his face. You saw his body, his mannerisms. Everything showed you that Dustin was in trouble. Not anymore. He gets off the bench and he tells Dan Hooker, don't look at the clock now. You know, like, we got a long time to continue to fight. That's the Dustin Poirier of today opposed to who he was back then. Conor McGregor, people kind of say he gets tired. And we've seen him fatigue. We've seen him fatigue against Nate Diaz, but that was a different fight than what he was preparing for. We saw him fatigue in fights. But in the second Nate Diaz fight, Nate Diaz started to build in the third round. And in the fourth round, when the fight got really close, in the fifth round, Conor McGregor, after being hurt, after being pressed against the side of the octagon and getting beaten, came back and won the fifth round, and it ultimately won him the fight, right? That shows development for Conor as a fighter. Conor fought 10 rounds with Floyd Mayweather. That's crazy. And then he went 4 rounds with Khabib Nurmagomedov. And who doesn't get fatigued going 4 rounds with Khabib, and Khabib's having the fight that he wants to have? So it seems like that on the surface. But again, there are just so many little details to the fight that we have to see how it starts to play out.
Daniel, if you could pick one weapon from either guy that the other one should look out for, what is it? So what does Dustin need to look out for? What does Conor need to look out for?
You know, it's crazy. Everybody would think that if you're Dustin Poirier, you got to avoid the left hand, right? That's Conor's best weapon, but that's not necessarily it. It's all the traps that he sets before he throws the left hand. That's why you always see Conor do some crazy stuff at the very start of the fight. It's always a spinning heel kick, a spinning back kick. It's always something to put you unaware. So I think if I'm Dustin Poirier, it's the unexpected that I'm really on a high alert for early in the fight. A jumping knee, a spinning heel kick, a spinning back kick. Something that's going to hit you and wheel you into the range of the left hand. Because it's not just Conor going out and throwing the left hand. Eddie Alvarez, it was fade back, left hand, drop him. Fade back, left hand, drop him. Okay, now I've got Eddie Alvarez really scared to go forward. When he does attack, he's going to attack with no confidence. And now I'm going to go left hand. I'm going to throw a hook, and I'm going to really put him out, right? It's all those little tricks that Conor does before he lets go of his ultimate weapon that I believe Dustin should be very aware of. And you know, for Conor, again, it's Dustin Poirier's boxing. You know, this dude has another good left hand, but that's not the shot. The shot from Dustin Poirier is the right hook, and it's off of a check too. So when Conor enters, Dustin throws that check right hook, and it's nasty because ultimately that's his power hand. He's a right-handed guy. He just fights with it in front. Right? So for him to have developed the power that he has in the left hand, fantastic. But it's that right hand. And that hook that Dustin throws, he hit Max Holloway with so many hooks. And he hit Dan Hooker with so many hooks every time they were in close because this hand's always up. Dustin's not like throwing that hook and this hand's down at his waist. It's right here, right in place. And he's throwing that check hook and he's landing beautifully.
You mentioned the mentality that Dustin needs to have to, put that first knockout in his mind. Is there something to be said that the first punch that Conor lands could be the most defining one of the fight? Because if he hits Dustin with power, Dustin might go right back and think, oh, I remember this, and sort of fail. Do you think a lot of it is made on that first contact? You know,
I talked to Dustin in Vegas, and he's very aware. You know, Dustin's an honest guy. He won't lie to you. He tells you he's very powerful. He's fast. He tells you he's very aware of the positives, the advantages that Conor has. I kind of didn't expect that when I first asked him, but he told me. He was like, hey, he's a very powerful guy, and he's told you guys that. He's very fast, and he's accurate, so I don't think he's going to be jarred by anything anymore just because he has felt it He understands what the consequences are to getting hit with it. I just think he has to be on high alert as the fight starts because Conor Fresh can put just about anybody out.
Is that what makes this so tricky? Because obviously, Conor has that power early, and Dustin needs to be careful of it. But if he wants to make him fade and make the fight go to his advantage, he also needs to make him work.
Well, he's got to earn some respect, right? You got to earn respect in the fight. You know, if a guy fears nothing, then you're in trouble. I mean, we saw that. You know, I talk about some of these fights, and Khabib comes up, right? Because Khabib went at Justin Gaethje like there was just no fear. And then I saw something yesterday where he said he's never been kicked or punched harder in his life. Could you tell? I mean, really, he just kept going after him. He just showed no fear. And I think in the fight with McGregor, he didn't look afraid either. And I think it's something to be said about posturing, right? Because even if those are affecting you, you never let it show. And I think Dustin needs to earn some respect, and he's got to have a good poker face because he's going to get hit. And there have been times where we've seen him get hit, and you can almost tell that he got hit. He cannot put on this weekend. He has to hide it. He has to show Conor that it's not affecting him when he is landing those shots.
Is there something to be said as well that we're seeing, we're reaching a stage now where the victory for some guys is almost just getting the Conor fight?
Well, it is. It elevates you.
Yeah, it's almost like, I got the fight, I got the cash, whatever, and then it's hard to motivate yourself to actually compete.
Well, I think that, you know, the guys that Conor, the ones that he's fighting, no one thinks I got the Conor fight and I'm good. Those guys are way too good. Because ultimately he's fighting the best of the best. Now, the Cowboy Cerrone fight, I know Stephen A. Smith and a lot of other people said he didn't fight. You know, he kind of gave up. You know, and he got railed, Stephen A. You know, it was bad, you know, but the reality is, like, Donald Cerrone of the old would never have lost to Conor McGregor in 42 seconds. There was a time when Donald Cerrone said he was too small to fight lightweight. He beat him up at welterweight, right? So even for a longtime veteran like Cowboy, the appeal of Conor McGregor got to him. But the guys that he's fighting now, you know, you got to be talking about Cowboy. I got the fight, and that's, like, I'm here, right? You got to be talking about Cowboy because I don't think the guys that he's going to fight going forward will ever feel like, oh, the victory's already had. I'm in here with Conor McGregor. Because when you're in there with Conor, he's trying to beat you. He ain't trying to let you win, right? He's trying to knock your head off. So Dustin Poirier doesn't feel happy to be here. And I saw Ally Quinta say something like that a while back. Dustin's showing too much respect. But, man, that kid's from Lafayette, Louisiana, and he is a dog. And he's going to fight with all of his heart. He might not win all the time. But you watch Dustin fight. He's a nasty son of a gun, dude. And he wants to fight, and he shows up. And he'll fight Conor to the best of his ability. I don't know if he'll win, but he will fight him hard. He'll fight him hard as he can.
How could size potentially play in here?
He's
Booker said that he heard before he fought Dustin that he was 183 when he got the cage.
Dustin's big. You look at his back and his arms. He's got really long arms. That's another thing about McGregor that people don't realize. He's got some super long arms. For a little guy, because make no mistake about it, Conor's a little guy, right? He's short, he's kind of skinny, but he's so long. He's got super long arms, and he's fast. But Dustin's big. Like, Dustin doesn't seem to have as much explosiveness. He's not going to go pap, pap, but it's like kind of like bang, bang, bang. Everything just kind of lands with a thud, right? From the jab to the left hand to the hook, everything just kind of lands with a thud from Dustin Poirier. And when he walks in the octagon, you look at his back and his arms and his shoulders. It was never more evident than when him and Max Holloway got in there. We all thought Max Holloway could fight at lightweight. And then when you saw them next to each other, you were like, wow, Max is too small to fight at lightweight. It's because Dustin's a big lightweight that at some point I feel is going to be fighting up at welterweight.